الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونستهديه ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهدي الله تعالى فلا مضل له ومن يضلله فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله وصفيه من خلقه وخليله بلغ الرسالة وأدى الأمانة ونصح للأمة وجاهد في سبيل الله حق جهاده حتى أتاه اليقين أما بعد. Brothers and sisters in Islam, we thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for everything. We praise Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for everything that He has given us. We thank Him for the infinite blessings that He's given to us, first and foremost of them being Islam, that we've been guided to this beautiful faith, and Iman that fills our hearts, and the unity of the brotherhood and sisterhood that we have in this community and any community we may go to. And that Allah has brought us here on this blessed day of Jummah, which is our holiday. And that Allah allows us to safely come and glorify Him on the day in which He should be glorified, and He should be glorified on every day in congregation with our beloved brothers and sisters. We thank Him for our health, for our wealth, for our prosperity. We're patient in anything that He has tried us with. And if we were to count the blessings that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us and bestowed upon us, we would not be able to enumerate them sufficiently. وَإِن تَعُدُّوا نِعْمَةَ اللَّهِ لَا تُحْصُوهَا. Whomsoever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guides to the straight path, there is none that can misguide such a soul, and we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us from amongst them. And whomsoever chooses for themselves a path of misguidance, there is none that can guide such a soul, and we seek refuge in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala from the evil of ourselves and the evil of shaitan, from being in such a wicked company. I bear witness that there is no deity worthy of worship but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and that the Rasul alayhi salatu wasalam is the last and final and most elect of his messengers. Says Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Ya ayyuha alladhina amanu attaqu Allah haqqa tuqatih wa la tamutunna illa wa antum muslimun. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us and informs us, O you who have believed, that's every one of us. O you who have believed, be conscious of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, be reverent of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, have Allah in your heart in a manner which is due to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and die not but in a state of submission, die not but in a state of surrender to that which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has decreed and ordained and made obligatory upon us, and in staying away from the matters which He has made prohibited, and doing from the good all that we can do, and abstaining from the reprehensible all that we can do. For you and I do not have the autonomy of choosing how long we are on this earth, but we can choose how we spend our time on this earth. So that if our souls depart today, tomorrow, next week, month, year, or decade, inshallah, it is with the blessing of salam from the malaika, for that is what we truly want. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gather us in a good gathering on the Day of Judgment, and in a better gathering in the hereafter, and make our transition from this life into the next life prosperous. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us hasana in this world. Allahumma atina fid dunya hasana wa fil akhirati hasana wa qina adhab an-nar. And on this blessed day of Jummah, we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to feed those who are hungry, to clothe those who don't have clothes, to put a shelter over those who don't have a home, to heal those who are sick, to send rain down upon those who are suffering from drought and famine, and to reconcile and bring the hearts of families together so that their problems are solved in this world and they don't have to deal with the consequences in the next world. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bring our hearts together. Of the trials and tribulations that we face, we find answers in the Quran. Whether they're trials that are social or economical, or those that harbor the evil, or those that find refuge in our hearts, the evil diseases of the hearts. We find answers to those diseases and parables of them in the Quran, and of those are the stories that we find in Surah Al-Kahf, which is a surah that is recommended for us to read on a weekly basis, on this day in particular. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reminds us of the parable of the two men, one of which had two gardens. وَاضْرِبْ لَهُمْ مَثَلًا رَجُلَيْنِ جَعَلْنَا لِأَحَدِهِمَا جَنَّتَيْنِ مِنْ أَعْنَابٍ وَحَفَفْنَاهُمَا بِنَخْلٍ وَجَعَلْنَا بَيْنَهُمَا زَرْعًا. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reminds us of the parable of the two people, one of which had two gardens, and that wasn't any ordinary garden. That garden was enveloped with date palm trees. And it had crops in the middle. And in the next ayah, وَجَعَلْنَا كِلْتَا الْجَنَّتَيْنِ آتَتْ أُكُلَهَا وَلَمْ تَظْلِمْ مِنْهُ شَيْئًا وَفَجَّرْنَا بَيْنَهُمَا نَهْرًا. That these two gardens, they always delivered their crops. At the end of the season, at harvest time, there was always an abundance of riches that came as a result of these two beautiful gardens. And you know what else? There was a water source right there. The irrigation was perfect. The conditions were perfect. What could go wrong? And the wealth that this person had seemed like it was growing on trees, literally growing on trees. From the water source that was watering those trees and the fruits you picked off those trees. And then the one person tells the other person, the one person with the two gardens and the wealth and the seeming prosperity in this earth and in this terrestrial life which will come to an end, tells the other person that أَنَا أَكْثَرُ مِنْكَ مَالًا وَوَلَدًا. He says, you know what? as a result of everything I see here, my perception that Allah has given me this wealth here, these gardens, and the money that comes as a result of these gardens, and the acreage and the land that Allah has given me, and you, by the context, you can tell the other person has none of this. The other person is poor by that estimation, in the material sense. So the person who has the wealth says, أَنَا أَكْثَرُ مِنْكَ مَالًا وَوَلَدًا وَأَعَزُّ نَفَرًا. He says, I'm clearly better than you on account of what Allah has given me. I'm clearly better than you on account of what Allah has given me. And if you look at every single story of arrogance in the Quran, it takes the same construction as Iblis's initial kibr, to say, أَنَا خَيْرٌ مِّنْهُ خَلَقْتَنِي مِن نَارٍ وَخَلَقْتَهُ مِن طِينٍ. If you look at every single case of arrogance in the Quran, it fits this exact description where Shaitan is saying, I am better than Sayyidina Adam. You created me from fire. You created him from dirt. What is this man saying? He's saying, I'm better than you. Allah gave me X and Y. He gave me wealth, and He gave you nothing. The story of Qarun, same thing. All of these stories are the same. It comes down to the same disease of arrogance. I am better than you because Allah has given me this. Or remove Allah from the equation altogether, which basically comes later in this story. Because what comes next is the person perceives himself as being better than the other because he has wealth. But then the next ayah says, مَا أَظُنُّ أَن تَبِيدَ هَذِهِ أَبَدًا. Not only am I better than you, but I don't think this will ever perish. This wealth that I have, it's permanent. Nothing can harm me. Removing Allah from the equation. And then you see that descent of arrogance paves the way for other sins. I'm better than you, then nothing bad can happen to me. And then what's the next ayah? وَمَا أَظُنُّ السَّاعَةَ قَائِمًا. I don't think that the day of judgment's even gonna come. I don't think that I'm going to be resurrected. I'm not going to be resurrected, he says. And even if I was to be resurrected, which I'm uncertain of to begin with, then when I'm resurrected, I'm going to be given even better than what I have now. Why? Because I was a good person here, and I was good because Allah gave me riches. And so when I'm resurrected, because of how much Allah loved me and blessed me in this part of my life, He's going to give me even better in the next part. What is the God in this equation? The God in this equation is the wealth. He measured his religiosity, he measured his worth by a material, fleeting thing of wealth. And this is not meant to be kept in a vacuum. Because in a society, in a capitalist society, we are programmed and conditioned to think that when the question is asked, what are you? You immediately process that question as, let me answer with giving the answer of, what do I do to make money? What do I do to secure my financial success? What do I do that is something that I can boast about one way or another? And many of us will scoff. You will laugh and mock at somebody if the question is ever asked, what do you do? Or who are you? Or what are you? And the person says, I'm a Muslim. What do you do? I worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You're laughing because you would never say it and we would never say it. And the thought doesn't even come to our minds because we've been conditioned to think that this is what is valuable. This is what the conversation needs. And then the story continues with, we learn who actually has the insight. We learn who actually is loved by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in this story. Because the person who doesn't have wealth, قال له صاحبه وهو يحاوره, He tells him, أَكَفَرْتَ بِالَّذِي خَلَقَكَ مِن تُرَابٍ ثُمَّ مِن نُطْفَةٍ ثُمَّ سَوَّاكَ رَجُلًا. You see, he puts himself up on this very high pedestal. He puts himself up on this very high pedestal, the first individual in the story. Look at how wealthy I am. Look at how powerful I am. Look at how much I have. Nothing can go wrong, and God clearly loves me. And you know what? I'm not even sure about God in that equation to begin with. And I'm a great person. I'm not even going to be resurrected. And if I do, I'm going to find a better life than this. And the answer is the answer, pay attention. The answer to this is the answer that each of us needs to have when we're talking to an atheist. Each of us needs to have when you're talking to an agnostic person. Did you disbelieve in the one who created you out of a sperm drop? A microscopic single cell that you and I cannot even see unless we have a microscope? Do you disbelieve and deny the one that made you out of a single cell? And he caused that cell to divide in its very delicate state, in an embryo, in your mother's womb. And then you developed to have bones and functioning organs and tissues. And a soul was breathed into you. And you were brought into this being. And you entered into this world having exited from the place of feces and urine twice. You and I were nothing. Just as Allah reminds us that we were a nutfa, and then we grow up to be this khasimun mubin. We grow up to be this individual who has all of these complex arguments that make us want to rationalize the denial of the one who brought us into this world. And so we learn from this who has the true insight. It's the poor man, the quote-unquote poor man who doesn't have the material resources, but he has the spiritual resources. And look at this, because there's two things here. There's the man who doesn't have the wealth who is saying this. And to say that is also incredible on his part. Because we may, because we're a religious minority, or we may, because we are an ethnic minority, or we may, because we have an accent, or we may, because we don't have a particular job or socioeconomic status, when we hear blasphemy, we just kind of put our heads down and put our metaphorical tails between our legs and not say a single word. And let those horrible statements of denial of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala just go. And that might even be in front of our children sometimes. And we let those things be said in the classroom, in the workplace, in our projects, everywhere. Even in our own homes. And then you learn from the inside of this man how he listened to his argument even though it was full of denial and disbelief. And he says, you know, you disbelieve in the one who created you from a single cell. And then he caused you to develop. And now you're a functioning human being. How about when you entered into your garden, why didn't you say, MashaAllah? This is what Allah willed. Good for you that you have this wealth. May Allah bless it and make it a cause for you to get closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But you know what? The fact that you have this wealth is because Allah decreed for you to have this wealth. And if He wants, He could just take it away. Thank you. He could just take that away. And He could give me better than you. Fortunes can change just like that. And you know directly from that story what actually happened. that the person who had the 2 gardens, the gardens were taken away. And then that person was left beating his hands into the ground, questioning why, questioning how, and left with utterly nothing. Because his God was his possessions. And when those possessions were gone, he had no God anymore. Everything was gone. But when we're conditioned to say, MashaAllah, that it is by Allah's will that I have this. And when things go, Inna lillah wa inna ilayhi raji'un, I and everything I have is from Allah, and I and everything I have will go back to Allah. We're going to return to Him. Then you and I have a better means of navigating these types of scenarios. I shared this story for a few reasons, and one of the reasons is we're very close to the beginning of the school year. Now, this is also applies if we're not in school, if we're in our professional working environments. Okay? But for better or for worse, and definitely for worse, yes, we take things from the educational system, but when we go to the educational system, you're taking facts and knowledge. And sometimes theories, they're not necessarily facts. And facts and knowledge is different from morals. Intellectual intelligence is different from moral intelligence. It's different from spiritual intelligence. Knowing how to solve an equation, knowing how to map a molecular pathway, knowing how to forecast financial trends does not predict your ability to get into Jannah. You can, insha'Allah, and we seek, insha'Allah, to learn and to fulfill different furud kifaya, different communal obligations with the knowledge that we seek to have in our community. But make no mistake that you and I are not taking morals from a secular education system. In fact, perhaps we are taking morals, and that is the loss of morals. When you go back to school, you're going to be surrounded by a high percentage of people that are coming from either broken households, households with plenty of substance abuse, and we have this in our community as well. Houses where the foundation of the family is being questioned, houses where the parent's opinion does not matter, and houses where God's opinion certainly doesn't matter. And you're learning in a system that teaches you that what you can rationalize is what you believe, and what your brain can wrap its head around, and that which is factual is what you believe. It doesn't leave room to make decisions with your heart. And yet in the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala teaches us, أَمْ لَهُمْ قُلُوبٌ لَا يَعْقِلُونَ بِهَا. He asks about the heart. And is it not the heart that perceives? Do they not have hearts with which they perceive that which is true and that which is not true? And so when we're in our educational systems, understand, you may hear things in history, you may hear things from your friends that cause you to question faith. If you are around a friend who is doubting God, if you are in a teacher who has the platform to teach you, and they have the audacity to say, you know what, I don't believe in God, know the very simple logical arguments in the Quran. Know the very simple logical arguments in the Quran, and they're not many. Teacher, you have this podium to teach us, and you're denying the fact that you were created from nothing. Don't you look and you see that the trees 6 months ago looked dead, and Allah has brought them back to life after the slumber of winter? Don't you see that there's a drought, a terrible drought in Texas, in the greater Dallas area? Who can bring the rain down except Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Who can bring the rain down? You know, I share this for a particular reason. Because the drought in Texas has been going on this entire summer. And one of the imams in the Dallas area announced, I'm going to do Salat al-Istisqa. I'm going to do the prayer seeking rain. And then he said, don't come if you don't think it's going to work. If you don't think this prayer for rain is going to work, then don't even bother coming. We don't need that negative energy here. And that's a very powerful thing to say. Because many of us, when we continue to grow in a society where there's a diminishing role of God in religion, it's not inna salati wa mamati wa mahyaya wa mamati lillahi rabbil alameen. Not every single thing in my life is for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's reduced to, you know what, I pray 5 times a day, but the way I earn my money, the way I choose my friends, where I live, this has very little to do with God and what is pleasing to God. The business dealings that I do, the language that I choose to use, the friendships, it's all towards what network I can bring to elevate myself financially, and I can leave my Muslim brothers and sisters to the side. أقول قولي هذا واستغفر الله لي ولكم من كل ذنب فاستغفروه تجدوه غفورا رحيما. بسم الله والحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه ومن والاه. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وقولوا قولا سديدا يصلح لكم أعمالكم ويغفر لكم ذنوبكم ومن يطع الله ورسوله فقد فاز فوزا عظيما. Pardon me, I lost my train of thought at the end of the first khutbah. And alhamdulillah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has reminded me what I wanted to say. The Imam in Dallas was talking about doing Salat al-Istisqa. And he said, don't bother coming if you don't think it will work. And yesterday and the day before, record downpours came in Dallas. The state in general still has a pretty big drought problem. But torrential rains came down in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, to the point that there's some flooding too. And it significantly improved the condition of the drought in that particular area. Just remember, you and I, that Allah is the one in control of everything. You and I can learn a whole lot, but Allah has allowed us to learn. You and I can earn a certain amount of money, but it is Allah who's allowing us to earn that money. You and I can bring benefit to the world, but it is only by the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It is only by the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And going back to the story of the 2 people in Surah Al-Kahf, perceive where you and I might be in this scenario. Perceive yourself where you would be in this story. You have the rich person in the material sense viewing himself above the person who is lower in society. What do you value as rich, and what do I value as rich? And what do I value as poor? You learn from this story what is true richness. It's the richness of Iman. And you see what delusion is. You see what delusion is. It's being drunk by your wealth to the point that you actually worship it. And the world ends and begins with it. Your happiness is measured by how much you have, and your sadness is measured by the proportional loss. And so I ask myself and you, where would you be? What do you view as wealth? Do you view wealth as looking like a certain person? Do you view intelligence as only coming from a particular type of person? For example, For example, if somebody with a British or French accent comes and gives you advice, or you hear somebody speaking with a British or French accent, you might automatically think, well, this person must be some sort of intellectual, because we've been conditioned to think that that's what a smart person sounds like. And then if you have somebody speaking in a Middle Eastern accent in their broken English, and they might be saying words of truth, or they might be wearing their traditional clothing from the Middle East or Southeast, you're automatically dismissing what they say because of the way the words come out of their mouth. Because of the sound of the words coming out of their mouth, because of the way they pronounce their letters, because of what they're wearing, because of how much they're earning, you automatically dismiss it. That's no different than this story. You have someone who perceives himself as better and superior and above the other person. We're saying when we do this that this type of person is better than that type of person. And this story is showing us that the only thing that determines what is better and truly better is the condition of the heart. Is Allah in your heart? Is Iman there? And in the presence or absence of Iman is the presence or absence of happiness, and the presence and absence of true success in this world and the next world. From this, I'm not trying to tell people to live lives where you're not trying to get a good earning. I'm not saying that. But there is the danger of delusion when it comes to wealth, and in viewing that wealth as a god, and having that wealth pull you away. So if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala facilitates wealth for you and I in this world, and knowledge for you and I in this world, may Allah use that as a facilitation and put that facilitation in our path to get closer to Him, and to do things with that wealth and with that prosperity to bring happiness and ease to those around us. May it not be a curse that speaks against us on the Day of Judgment because it distanced us from Him. And that while you were and I was making far less money, a fraction of it, you and I were in the masjid more. Or you and I were making more dhikr or reading more Quran. You and I were more involved in the community, helping the poor and helping the needy and helping the orphans and the refugees. But when you and I got a little bit of wealth and got that break, we started to count what we have, and we started to think how we can get more, and with that, our time was consumed from everything else. And that's how we get lost. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل محمد كما صليت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم وبارك على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما باركت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم في العالمين إنك حميد مجيد. اللهم اغفر للمسلمين والمسلمات والمؤمنين والمؤمنات الأحياء منهم والأموات إنك سميع قريب مجيب الدعوات. اللهم آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار وأقم الصلاة.
الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح قد قامت الصلاة قد قامت الصلاة الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله
لا إله إلا الله. Is Shuja' Allah Osmani, let's make dua for him in your salah. He's in critical condition. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alleviate the suffering of him and anybody who is sick, and have mercy on anyone who's passed away. Ameen. And just an announcement that there is Salat Janazah after Jummah, so please stick around if you can to get that ajr and to pray for the one who is deceased, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala have mercy upon all those who have passed away. استووا واعتدلوا تراسوا سدوا الفرج. Please be straight in your lines and straight in your heart. Allahu Akbar. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إذا جاء نصر الله والفتح ورأيت الناس يدخلون في دين الله أفواجا فسبح بحمد ربك واستغفره إنه كان توابا. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله.
اللابي ممكن تدخل الجنازة هنا. Can you check? السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Quick announcement before we pray janazah inshallah about the prayer times starting tomorrow. Fajr prayer will be 5:30 a.m. Asr will be 5 p.m. and Isha inshallah 9:15 p.m. inshallah. This is starting tomorrow. Again, Fajr 5:30 a.m. and Asr 5 p.m. and Isha 9:15 p.m. inshallah ta'ala. And once the janazah is ready inshallah, take few minutes inshallah to get the reward of praying with us janazah. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to have mercy on the deceased. He's a man. Ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to accept him, to have mercy on him inshallah ta'ala. So we wait for our brothers to tell us if the janazah is ready to pray in the lobby or in the musalla. Few minutes inshallah. So the janazah is ready. We are going to pray in the lobby inshallah. So let's go to the lobby and make lines inshallah. Bismillah wa salatu wa salamu ala rasulillah wa ala alihi wa ashabihi wa man wala. Please make dua for the deceased Mas'ud Ahmed Qurashi, father of Irfan, Imran, Kamran, Rihan and Adil Qurashi. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala have mercy on him. Before we start our prayer inshallah, as a reminder about janazah, it is 4 takbirat, 4 times we say Allahu Akbar. After the first one, we recite Surah Al-Fatiha, Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. After the second takbirah, we say الصلاة الإبراهيمية اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما صليت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم وبارك على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما باركت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد. After the third takbirah, we make dua for our brother. Any dua that you memorize, no matter what language you are speaking, inshallah ta'ala, Allah will understand and answer your dua. And after the 4th takbirah, we make dua for him and for all the Muslim community. And then we say Assalamu alaikum. So inshallah ta'ala, we are going to pray. Make sure that your lines are straightened. الله أكبر الله أكبر. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما صليت على وبارك على الله أكبر. اللهم اغفر له وارحمه وعافه واعف الله أكبر. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. اللهم لك الحمد كما ينبغي لجلال وجهك وعظيم سلطانك. اللهم أجرنا في مصيبتنا واخلفنا خيرا منها. اللهم اغفر له وارحمه وعافه واعف عنه. اللهم أكرم نزله ووسع مدخله وغسله بالثلج والماء والبرد. اللهم وجازه بالإحسان إحسانا وجازه بالسيئات عفوا وغفرانا. اللهم إن كان محسنا فزد في إحسانه وإن كان مسيئا فتجاوز عن سيئاته. اللهم ثبته عند السؤال. اللهم ثبته عند السؤال. اللهم ثبته عند السؤال. اللهم واجعل قبره روضة من رياض